Welcome to the AWS Edge Innovation Spotlight, where we're talking with partners today who build on AWS Edge services. My name is Mark McEwen. I'm a GTM specialist in the Worldwide Specialist Organization. I have Michael Callahan here, who is the Chief Marketing Officer for Salt Security. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
Tell us about your company and what do you do?
Salt Security, we do API security. We solve really three main problems for companies. The first one is helping them understand what they have, so discovering all their APIs. The second one is understanding what's the posture of those APIs, or are they in or out of the policy that they've set. And then the last thing is making sure that they're protected from any threats.
So how has Salt's mission evolved over time?
Hey, I think when we started the company, what we saw was people didn't really know about APIs or API security. I mean, some people did, like in the technical side of things. So early on, we had to do a lot of explaining about this is what an API does, this is why it's important to your business, and this is the risk that you may have with it. I think it's evolved lately to now people know it and they're thinking, how do I protect it? How do I make sure that my company has less risk, especially as they evolve to using more and more APIs to power their business?
It's great. It's good news. Tell us about how some of your customers are using AWS services.
I think most of our customers have AWS somewhere, but for us though, they're using AWS services specifically to understand where they have APIs and how to use more of the AWS services to deliver better experiences to their customers by using AWS services combined with Salt Security services.
Do most of your customers today use any type of API security?
So they do. So our customers definitely use it, and they use it with in combination with a lot of the AWS products and technologies. But there's a lot of people that don't. A lot of people that still don't know what's out there, what the risk could be with APIs, and so it's there's a lot of education that we do.
How are customers that are using a CDN for content delivery or Layer 7 application security, how can they work with Salt Security?
Yeah, it's a good question because I think technologies are built for a purpose, right? They're called purpose-built technologies. And I think we see that on the AWS side with the WAF, with the gateway, with the CDN solution of CloudFront. And what they do with Salt is combine that. So you combine those edge technologies, those edge services with a Salt solution, and now you've got a complete solution where you're protected from any sort of risks related to APIs, but also able to more quickly discover where are my APIs and what's the posture of those APIs.
How quickly can a customer do that discovery?
So one of the inventions that we did with the AWS team, which we're really, really proud of, is something called AWS Cloud Connect. 10 minutes or less, they can connect into the AWS environment, pull out all of their APIs so they have a complete inventory and understand to a degree what the postures of those APIs. 10 minutes or less, super simple, 1 or 2 clicks. It's a great invention that we had.
How does that work for AWS customers that are using a third-party solution?
It all goes together. I think you have what the beauty of this and the beauty of working with the AWS team is that they really do think about the partners and how all of this works together to deliver in combination a better solution to the end user. So as we're working with, it may be the AWS team, it may be us, it may be another partner even that comes together to build a technology or a solution that the end user benefits from.
How does using Salt Security make it easier for customers to secure their environment?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're really happy about is the relationship with AWS, and in particular on the technology side. We've done a lot of integrations with the AWS technologies with the aim of delivering a positive experience for the end user. And what that largely means in this space, because it's very complicated to do API security, it means how can I take that complexity and do something quick and easy? So by working closely with the technology people at AWS, we're able to make this integration with the products to deliver a solution that's very easy to use, happens very fast, and gives them all of this great insight that they otherwise wouldn't have.
What are the different type of customers that you serve globally?
So we serve customers across many, many industries, from finance to technology to manufacturing, pharmaceutical, healthcare. But it's really anyone that's using APIs. And in today's world, it's just about everyone, from banking to transportation to manufacturing to healthcare, pharmaceutical. They all use APIs to deliver this experience. As an example, let's just say that you're looking to get a ride to the airport. An API is used in multiple places there. So it's used to say, well, where am I? So it finds your location. And there's an API that goes out that says, where's the driver? That's using an API. What's traffic light? It's using that to determine the amount of time for the driver to get to you and to get to the airport. I may even look at, is my credit card information up to date? So that's an example of how APIs are in just about every application, every experience that you have as a customer of any business, and we serve all of them.
What are some challenges that you've had to overcome over the last few years?
I think the challenge that we saw were educating people about something. Like almost by definition, when you think API security, well, what does API stand for? It's Application Programming Interface. So it became technical, and so we had to explain and kind of abstract that from the deep technical understanding of what it does to why it matters to the business and how you can benefit from security related to that, or even just understanding what APIs you have. That was one of the challenges that we had in the business.
How is your company supporting the adoption of AI?
So there's two ways. There's two ways that we're llooking at using AI to deliver better experiences for customers. One is in our own product. So we have our own MCP server, and we built it so that customers can ask things in just normal language, just how they would talk. So they may say something like, "Hey, can you tell me where I have APIs, where I have APIs that might be at risk?" And tell me what to do about it, and just type it just like that, and they'll get an answer. And you would get the same answer if you went into the product, did a little bit of research, but now we make it a lot easier and a lot faster. So that's one side of it. We're doing it. We're putting it in our product to make the experience better for Salt Security. The other side is, well, what about your environment and how secure is it? So how do you go out and discover where all of these AI agents are, or where these MCP servers are, and they're exploding in quantity, right? So what you had before, as you introduce AI agents, you have about 100 times the amount of API traffic simply because of all of the connections that are making. So you have to remember that from an AI agent to an MCP server is an API call. From a server to any of the backend data sources are more API calls. So that's for one agent. Imagine if you say, all right, as a company, we're going to introduce 20, 30, 50 agents. The amount of API traffic it explodes, and there's no way that anybody could possibly keep up with that. People spinning up MCP servers that may be shadow servers that you don't know about. So we can look in that environment and say, here's where your risk is. We can find it, right? This goes back to the discovery problem that we talked about earlier. We can tell you what the posture is. So are they in or out of policy? And then are any of those assets being attacked?
What do you see as the better together story between AWS and Salt Security?
I think the better together story has to do with how all of these technologies are integrated seamlessly. So you've got the AWS WAF, which solves a specific problem. The AWS WAF solves a problem, for example, of it would stop a DDoS from occurring. You've got CloudFront, so the content delivery solution, looking at other type of security threats and stopping those, or the gateway even. And we're able to take that and combine it with the Salt solutions, so you have a complete solution that operates seamlessly.
And when customers look to set up this type of solution, I think you said before it's pretty simple. Can you walk through that?
Yeah, so the setup is very, very simple. It literally is 10 minutes or less. Working so closely with the AWS team, we're able to create a solution where it's largely menu driven, where you're just clicking on an option. You're clicking on, I would like this to integrate, I would like that to integrate. And then all of the really hard technical work is done behind the scenes, so that when someone's using it, they just see a solution. They see the answers. They don't see all the technology behind it.
And can a customer do this by themselves, or do they need somebody at Salt to help them do that initial setup?
I guess someone could do it themselves if they had years of time and all of the expertise on the API security side. But really, they want to do it with someone that is focused on this. It's a purpose-built solution, similar to the AWS side, where you've got purpose-built solutions that solve specific problems. So across all of the AWS services, they're all solving a certain problem. Now you put that all together, and you get this packaged solution that delivers a great experience.
What is your proudest win while at Salt?
I would say that the thing that I'm most proud of is we did some real invention, something that didn't exist before with the AWS team. We have a solution called AWS Cloud Connect. And with that, we are able to see all of the APIs that a company might have in their AWS infrastructure, the posture of those APIs, and if they're being attacked. And I'm really proud of it. And the reason I'm most proud is we're seeing companies adopt this faster than we've seen them adopt anything else. It was true invention. There's nothing else in the industry that looks like this. And we're using it. We're deploying it. People see it. And within 10 minutes, they see the value. And oftentimes, they don't even want to go into a POV because they see the value immediately. They want to get it in their environment so they can be protected, so they can be benefiting from the solution.
How can customers sign up for this?
The best way to sign up for it is to go to our website. So it's salt.security, and you'll see a button that says a demo request or contact us. Either one will work, and we'll get back with the customer immediately.
Okay, great. How's your go-to-market strategy evolved?
I think early on, what we saw was we could go this alone, and it had to do with the education that we had to do, right? Because remember, early on, people didn't really know what APIs were or what the risk around the APIs were. I think it's evolved now though, where they do know, and so we work more with our partners. We work more with AWS to say how do we jointly go in to deliver a solution as true partners, so that the customer sees it as one solution across both of us. But going in together, is how our go to market solution has evolved.
What strategies or insights have helped you successfully adapt your business?
You know, this is in retrospect we should have seen this, but at the time we did, one of the ways that we had to adapt, we went and solved the really hard problem first. So the really hard problem in API security was, um, is this API at risk? And so is it being attacked? What's the threat against it? Because a lot of traffic looks legitimate unless you're looking at it over long periods of time. And so we solved that problem, and we actually have a patent on that, and we're really, really proud of that. But what we learned and what we had to adjust was most people didn't know that they had that risk. They actually were way earlier in the whole journey wanting to know, what do I have? I don't even know what APIs I have. And so we adjusted that. So we adjusted it to make it really easy. And that's one of the things we did with AWS was how can we make it as easy as possible for people to understand what APIs they have, what inventory of APIs, what's the posture of those APIs. And then we get to the threat piece, which we solved years ago, which again was the hardest piece. But what people really wanted to know was, what do I have? And it's one of the great things of working at AWS is we're able to deliver the solution so they get the benefit of it quickly and easily.
Is that the question that's top of mind for customers about what APIs do they have?
It absolutely is. And I will say sometimes people don't want to admit that. As we talk to them and we open it up and they see how much we just want to help them be successful, they will most times admit that. They'll say, I really just want to know what I have. I think I have a handle on it. I don't know though. Maybe there are some shadow APIs out there that people have developed. Maybe there's some zombie ones that were out there and nobody decided to get rid of them. I'll give you an example. We had one customer who thought they had a certain number of APIs. So we typically will ask people, how many do you have? And this particular customer said, I think we have about 10,000 APIs. We said, great. Well, let's set it up and let's get going. So we deployed the AWS Connect Cloud Connect solution. Turns out they had 40,000 APIs. So a big surprise. So that's in that key area of people not knowing what they have or thinking they have something and they don't have it. And we're able to bring that value really quickly to them with AWS Cloud Connect, showing them how many APIs they have and the posture of them as well.
What type of risks do you think would be there with having that many APIs that they're unaware of?
Yeah, so having that many APIs, it's almost impossible to keep track of that, right? Think about trying to do that just in your own mind or even in a spreadsheet, because some people were doing that in the past. You can't. You can't do it like that. You've got to have some sort of technology that's going through, automatically discovering them, automatically populating the product, and then telling you, here's where I think you need to focus. Because at something of that scale, how would you possibly know where to focus? You wouldn't, right? So you've got to have something that says, hey, these are the most important ones, or these are the ones that you've set a policy for, and they're very much out of policy. Maybe it's sharing personal information or credit card information or anything like that.
So that's the first question customers may ask, but what's the next question?
So the next question that comes, and it's very typical, this happens almost every time, is the first question again is, what APIs do I have? Great. So now we understand what we have. It's a really easy solution. We can get the information to them quickly. The next follow-up is always, well, are they in policy, or what's my posture of these? Am I sharing sensitive information? Are these, maybe I'm subject to some sort of industry regulation like HIPAA or PCI for credit cards. Am I in or out of policy? That's the second question that people ask, or the follow-up question. Once they know what they have, they want to know, am I in or out of policy, and what do I do about it?
So what's the solution?
So the solution to this is to deploy this service that we've built together with AWS, so that you quickly see what you have, and then you see where you're in or out of policy. And in particular, what we do on the policy side, we call it posture governance. We give people the equivalent of an app store. So just like you would go to the app store and you would pick an app that you're interested in, we built over 100 apps. It's called Policy Hub, where you would go in, click on one that's applicable to you. So it may be PCI. Maybe you take credit cards online. So you click the PCI one click. Now that policy is deployed. So anytime you have an API that's violating that policy, it's going to be flagged and you're going to know what to do about it.
What kind of benefits do customers see by doing all this?
So the benefit they see is they can quickly deliver services to their end users, to their customers, knowing that they're protected on the risk side, so that they've reduced their risk, their attack surface is less than it was, and they can make a good decision about releasing new services or not based on the fact that they now have visibility into what the risk is.
Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks.